Hi everybody, today I am going to be getting my annual stuff set up in my new Makselife Planner that I'm going to be using in 2022, as well as going through the goal setting process. I don't anticipate I'm going to finish it in this sitting, so this video will likely cover at least a couple of days, if not more, which is fine. I've done this in the past when I've set power sheets up. I've just done them over the course of however long it took me, and then put it all together into one video. But I like to show you the process of it because I find that it is helpful for people who are struggling with their goal setting, as well as like motivating. It gives you something to work alongside too. So that's what I'm going to be doing. This is the Makselife 6-month undated, which is what I decided to use for this next year for both goals and my personal life planning. Before we get into the actual setup though, what I want to do is turn to the life compass because I love, you guys know me and my color coordination. I love me some colored pens. I love me things looking like they're matchy. And I had the idea from Tattooed Teacher Plans, Taylor, that she uses coordinated mild liners to fill in the compass. And so I thought, well, I'm going to want to use color coordinated for all of like the assessments throughout the year. So I'm going to let you know which mild liners and Zig dot pens I'm using. They are not exact matches, but here you can see my my process here in my bullet journal to get it all figured out. But real quick, I will show you the colors that I am using for each category. Okay, so for personal, for the Zig Clean Color Dot Marker, I am using Summer Sun. For the mild liner, I'm using Gold. Fun and Recreation, this was the hardest one for me to match, so I just went with colors I actually like, and these are very close to each other, even if they don't really match this like kind of muted orange. And that is Island Coral Zig Clean Color Dot Marker and the Marigold Zig Mild Liner. These are much more of like a reddish, darker orange than this color, but I'm totally fine with that. If you want something that's a little lighter, I also found that Apricot Mild Liner and either Peach Bliss or Fawn Zig markers could work. They don't match each other at all, but they are a little bit more in this range. I wanted something that was closer to each other rather than something that was perfectly close to this. For the work and learning, I have the red mild liner and the red dot marker. For family and relationships, I have the violet mild liner and the hyacinth dot marker. For health and wellness, I have the splash Zig dot marker and the dark blue mild liner. And then for the spiritual and personal growth, kind of like the fun and recreation and the personal, I went for the more saturated color because I love these colors so much. And since I'm fairly certain spiritual and personal growth is going to be high on my list to focus on this year, I really want to pick colors I liked. And so I have the spring green mild liner and the ocean Zig dot marker. And then for financial, fairly easy. I've got the kiwi dot marker and the green mild liner. And then finally, for the physical environment, good old grays. I use these all the time. The gray mild liner and the platinum Zig dot marker. So those are the colors I'm going to be using. What I'm planning on doing is keeping them in this Makselife little situation here, and then just having them stand up in that. And I'm thinking about creating some sort of a little bag I can bring from the basement to upstairs so that I can, on a regular, bring at least my personal planner and my bullet journal back and forth so that I don't need to come down to my office and surround myself with work in order to use my planner personally. I go more into this in the previous video, so like I said, go check that one out if you haven't already. But for now, I'm just going to get these out of my way, make sure that the mild liners are facing the correct direction so I can actually tell which one is which. Because the Zig dot markers you can tell regardless, but the mild liners, they only have color on the one end. And then the pen I'm going to be using is my old trusty Pentel Energel Klena 05, although I do have a couple of Pentel pens on order from Jet Pens with an 07 tip for when I want a bolder statement but still a gel pen. They don't have a bolder Klena, but they do have a bolder and a couple of other Pentel Energel brands or Energel like lines. And since I love the Energel ink, I thought I'd give those a try. So when those do show up, I'm sure you'll see them. Anyway, now that we talked about pens, let's get to the front of the planner. We're just going to start working our way through it and blah, blah, blah. So I guess it's time to put my name in it, right? Not all my information, though. I never put that in my planner. I mean, I guess if you lose it, but like I don't take them out of the house. There's my name. Don't wear it out. All right, so getting started. Features, blah, blah, blah. Don't care, don't care. We talked, that's not what we're looking at right now. And I'm going to just make a little frowny face on Tony Robbins because I really think he sucks. So frowny face, Tony Robbins. Okay, so step 1 is the compass assessment. Step 2 is setting intentions. Step 3 is annual goals and visions. Step 4 is monthly goals and weekly actions. And step 5 is monthly reflections and quarterly review. So the idea here is that these 3 are what we're going to be working on in this video. And then these guys will be taken care of either in monthly videos, in the weekly live plan with me's, or off camera. Compass assessment, setting intentions, and annual goals and vision. I'm hoping that in the time I have right now, which is not a shit ton, but it should be enough to get through the compass assessment and maybe the setting intentions. And then I can let that kind of marinate for the next day. And then tomorrow I can come back to it and work on this. And the reason I'm working on this when I am is because then the HB90 Bootcamp is next week where I'll be working on work goals. But I think because I'm really hoping to prioritize my personal life in this next year, that doing this first is important. The compass assessment. The Makselife Compass is an important tool that allows you to increase your self-awareness and learn more about your emotions, thoughts, and beliefs, recognize opportunities for personal development, change, and growth, set meaningful goals anchored to your values and purpose, track your progress throughout the year so you can make adjustments accordingly. That's what it's for. So we have to establish a starting point. The statements in this assessment have been designed to serve as a guidepost to some of the most common areas for growth potential and will help uncover any blind spots that may exist. They have been created to give you a more in-depth look into all areas of your life to identify opportunities for growth, not to promote a level of perfection. Celebrate the areas you're doing well in and give yourself grace in the areas that you want to improve. This exercise can bring up a myriad of thoughts and feelings and is an excellent opportunity to practice self-acceptance. Remember, the process of creating a life you love is a journey, not a destination. There will always be room to grow. We're going to start with the assessment, which is rating yourself on a scale of 1 to 10 for each statement, how it applies to you. 1 does not apply, 10 strongly applies, and then each area, take the average of those, and then fill in the life compass here to see where you're at. So I'm going to do that right now. And I'll talk about it after the fact because I don't want to talk about it while I'm doing it. I'd rather do it. Maybe I don't know. Yeah. We'll do it that way. So let me get this started. So I rounded down on all of the estimates just because on all the averages just to kind of keep things, in a general place. But let's go over this real quick. So in the personal realm, my biggest strength in terms of how I rated it is in my needs being taken care of and in spending time alone. And in the big areas that need work is really in terms of hobbies and interests outside of work and personal goals I'd really like to achieve. Like, that's really just been ignored in the last year. So that was a score of 7. For fun and recreation, which was my lowest scored area, not surprising to me in the slightest. My strongest score was in social interactions are enjoyable, meaningful, and fun, which they are when I have them, which is rarely. However, creating moments for rest and rejuvenation, doing things that bring me joy, taking regularly planned vacations and time off, and rewarding myself when I accomplish it. This is just an area I'm going to need some total work in this year, which I expected. Going into this, that was high on my priority list to begin with. Work and learning, on the other hand, is my highest scored area, which doesn't surprise me because, like I have said in multiple videos, my personal life has taken a pretty hardcore backseat to work lately. And that's something I want to work on reestablishing some amount of balance or whatever you want to call it. But anyway, highest areas, there were lots of them, but I really love what I do and I'm fulfilled by it. I feel good about it. I marked the lowest one, which is still high, is expanding my skills through growth and development, which is something that's kind of tied in with hobbies. one of the reasons I love art is because I love making things. But when I make things and then they become work, that it's hard for me to have fun with it. But by not giving myself enough room for personal like art exploration and personal self-initiated like art projects, I need to do that more to help develop new skills. And that's both a fun and recreational thing, a personal, that kind of all three of these, it feeds into that. So the score for that was an 8. Family and relationships. This was another one of the top highest scores along with personal. Most of the top ones have to do with my actual relationships with my family, especially my family and my friends. And the biggest issues here is healthy boundaries and toxic relationships. I don't actually have a lot of toxic relationships, but there is a particular relationship in my life that is toxic and that I need to set some better boundaries around. And that's something I want to focus on a little bit this year. For health and wellness, one of my lower scores, I mean, I'm in kidney failure, so there is that, but I could be doing things better. And one of my hopes for this next year is to get a little less wrapped up in it so that I want to be able to make sure that the transplant center loves me hardcore for being compliant in everything. My top score here was healing from stress or trauma I've experienced. I think I've done a fairly good job of that. Whereas my lower scores have to do with things like getting enough sleep and having a regular exercise routine. Expect those to show up. Average score is a 5. For spiritual and personal growth, again, another area that I expect to need to do some work in. And the funny thing is this is not one of the lowest scores because I have real strengths in some of these areas, like knowing what my definition of spirituality is, being connected to my guiding principles. I have those things. What I don't have is investing time into my spiritual growth and engaging in spiritual practice. And a lot of this has to do with finding and engaging with a new UU community, which was on my list this year, and it just hasn't happened yet. So that was a 6. Financial was lower than I expected. We are as a family, our finances are doing fine. My personal relationship with money is still a little fraught. Now that we've moved and our cost of living has changed and everything is just a little different, we just need to do some more financial planning as a couple. I just need to make sure to stay engaged in the process because Jesse is usually the one who handles a lot of that because he's good with money and I have like major fear around money and I need to like basically continue to stay engaged so I'm not sticking my head in the sand. So that was a 5. And then for physical environment, positives here have to do with my house is clean and safe. I love my home. It has places that I really enjoy in it. However, I don't feel very organized right now just because I have not been able to devote a lot of time to some of the organizing projects around the house. It's a lot of space and it can be overwhelming for me at times. Making sure we stay up to date on certain maintenance things. There's some things that just kind of fell off of our radar, and being supportive in the management of our home. Things have been really hard for one of my kids lately, and I haven't wanted to put the onus of it on the other kid, which meant that a lot of it's on me. And I also am not feeling very good, so we need to work through that in the upcoming year. I'm going to fill these in the compass, and then we will continue. And like I said, I'm going to do what Taylor did, and I'm going to color it in with the mild liner because I think that is an awesome idea. Consider what you'd like to score yourself in each area of life by the end of the year, then circle that number on your compass. Again, something Taylor did was she just used the pen end of the finer tip, which mine are all blunted, but whatever, end of the mild liner to put in realistic ideas of what she would like in each area. So for personal, the score was a 7, and I would like to bring it to a 9. That's 2 levels. But I'd really like to do that. And the reason I think it's possible is because there are areas in my life that are scored nicely and fairly high. The areas that I need to work on are the areas I really want to work on this next year. I want to re-engage with hobbies, both hobbies I've already had that I want to deepen and maybe find some new hobbies. I'd like to find some time. There's some enrichment, and I'd really like to get to a point where I am thinking about and reflecting on aspects of my personal life as much as I do on my work life, because I do plenty of that in my work life. So it's 2 levels, but that's my big hope for the year. Fun and recreation. Fun and recreation is the lowest scoring one because, that doesn't surprise me, right? Basically, what I would like to do is bring that to a 6 from a 4. Again, another 2 levels, which I think is entirely possible. And again, this goes back to the personal goal, engaging with things I love that I don't need to make money from, just things that I love, taking scheduled time off with my husband, especially, because he also could use that, and really just finding ways to do things that make me happy and that get me out of the house, seeing people, being with my dog, just doing things, because I think that'll impact me not just in a fun aspect, but in my health and in my personal growth, my well-being, my spiritual. There's a list of potential things I'd love to do. I need to prioritize them. For work and learning, I'd like to increase it from an 8 to a 9, and I really would like to focus on the learning aspect of it. Specifically, again, like I said, with both personal and fun and recreation, there are some different styles of art I'd like to learn. And while they may not be work related, I would like to make them and not necessarily worry about making money off of them. Any sort of new art skills I pick up will be beneficial to my overall creative practice, and that does include the stuff that I do for work. So there's that. For family and relationships, my current score is a 7, and what I would like to do is increase that to an 8. Mostly, I would like the biggest thing I'd like to do with family and relationships is prioritize time with each member of my household, Jesse and the kids, that doesn't actively involve like medical stuff or school or whatever, but like outside things. So going back to fun and recreation and personal, I'd like to spend some more time together as a family. I'd like some outings as a family. One of my kids is also going through a fairly rough crisis right now, and so as a family, I would like to make sure that we support that person while at the same time making sure that we maintain healthy boundaries around it so that we can continue to thrive while helping them to do better and better and better. For health and wellness, my score is a 5. My goal this past year in my health arena was to use like habits to maintain shit, and that was going okay at the beginning of the year, and then the move through everything into wackadoodleness. But now that we've moved, I'd like to reaffirm some good habits and get to a place where if the transplant center asks me if I'm compliant in any aspect of health or fitness, that I can say that and not lie about it or not be ashamed of anything. So ultimately, I would like to increase my shit to a 7, even though I know that being in kidney failure means I will probably have more health crises this year. I'm not necessarily worried about increasing my health stuff for my overall physical health, but I would like to improve my constitution as best as I can so that when I do get a transplant, the recovery will not be as heinous. Spiritual and personal growth. I already know where this is going. I would like to improve this from a 6 to a 7. It's not a huge bump, but I'd like, because, it takes time to build relationships and everything else, and who knows what's going to happen with all of the variants. Basically, what this looks like is engaging with the UU congregation we have been waiting to engage with, getting to know people. A major goal that kind of also goes with fun and recreation as well is feeling comfortable enough at the congregation so that in November, when they reopen the choir, joining it. Assuming, of course, it's safe for me. So for financial, 5, I'd like to get that to a 7. I think that is entirely possible, and I think that will happen with regular good financial practices, regular meetings with Jesse, and just, prioritizing those things. And then for physical environment is a 6, and I would like to bring that to an 8. And most of that has to do with prioritizing time for the things around the house I'd like to get done. Lots of projects. There's a couple of spots, specifically financial, spiritual growth, and fun and recreation, where I was being realistic with these goals setting, but these are the 3 I want to see the most improvement in. So those will probably be some of the aspects, and the health and wellness. These 4. Of the 8 of them, those are the 4 that I'm like the most thoughtful about at the moment. Here is the intentions page. I already think, though, I have done a lot of this thought process going into this, as well as while I was doing the assessment. So let's just go right into it. So for my intentions, what could I use more of my life this year? Fun, hobbies, cooking, exploring, singing, community, and rest. What could I use less of in my life this year? Pain, guilt, overscheduling, procrastination, and soda. In my stress this last year, my soda relationships that I thought I had shed. What characteristics would I like to nurture this year? Joy, carefreeness, which I don't think is a word, but it's like I want to nurture being more carefree. So I couldn't figure out the best way to say that. I'd like to nurture routine, but also spontaneity. So both of those aspects of my life. Because right now it feels like I'm being sort of pulled along by the wheel of my life rather than actually deciding when, like, how I want my life to look in certain aspects and when I would like to just sort of be pulled in different directions, but doing it because I want to, not because that's just the machine I'm in. The habits I want to develop this year, 3 of them. There's more. Is a regular exercise routine, something I'm really struggling with right now. In part, I love the Peloton. However, I have been feeling so shitty that I got out of it, and now I'm so overextended with everything else that it feels like just another thing to try and force myself to do. And so I want to just make it a habit so that it doesn't feel like I'm forcing myself to do it anymore. A daily brain dump. I talked more about this in the previous video of my planner stack. It was an idea I got from Elena over at the Organized Money. I think that would be a great practice to get into, especially when it's like at the beginning of the day before I start coming down to work, so that it's a brain dump for my whole life. And then this seems silly, but regular manicures. My hands are a fucking hot mess between the dryness, making them all like extra wrinkly and crusty looking, but also with all the stress of this last year, I have gotten to the point of biting my nails until they hurt again. And I know that one of the things that helped me stop biting them was being on YouTube and people seeing my hands, but also getting gel nails done on the regular. It kept me from biting them because they were thicker, so it wasn't as like my nails are so flaky right now that biting them is almost like an instinct. I don't think it's going to be gel manicures. It may be dip manicures because that might be easier on my poor kidney disease flaky nails. We shall see. Might be doing it myself. I don't know, but taking care of my nails. This year, I will be more calm, brave, rested, and energized, and I will do less staring off into space and guilting myself. I will give myself grace for not getting it all done or misstepping with my kids or their dad. I will let go of trying to be all things to all people, and I will embrace adventure, both physical, getting out of the house adventures, but also the adventures of learning new art things, trying new cooking. Like, adventure can mean a bunch of different things, and that's something I want to embrace. Thinking about this, just looking at this, thinking about all the thinking I've been doing recently about what I want for this next year, my word of the year, I haven't decided it yet. That's what's going to happen hopefully right now, but it's all kind of leaning towards this idea of reclaiming my entire life. I've done a great job of really developing the work that I do into something I enjoy and something I can continue to make better. But my personal life around that has really suffered, and there has been a lot of pressures and stresses on my personal life in this last year. My own health, the move, my kids' health, everything else. What I want to do is still manage those things, but reclaim that part of my life, the aspect of it that just makes me happy and makes me feel calm and makes me feel fulfilled. I have some ideas here. We've got adventure, we've got fulfilled, we've got joy, we've got fun, reclaim. I'm going to do some computering for a hot minute and see if I can find a synonym to any of these or maybe something else that feels right for this moment. So my word of the year is going to be replenish. I kind of found it by looking at reclaim and sort of going to restore, but I don't want to restore my life. I want to replenish it. I'm not the same person I was back when I had a life that was really full of different aspects when I was working at Trader Joe's, and so I didn't have to spend so much brain power on my work so I could be doing other things outside of the house. I don't want to restore it to that. What I want to do is replenish it. Now, the 2 definitions of replenish that I saw that made me really feel this was the first definition as a transitive verb, which is to fill or build up again. And that felt really accurate for what I want for my life as a whole, not just certain aspects of my life. But then I saw the archaic definition, which is to supply fully. And that felt really good. In general, my life is in a good, stable place. I enjoy what I do. I have a good home. I have a healthy relationship with my family. My life, the foundation of my life is stable. That is an awesome thing. However, in the day-to-day of my life, who I am as a person, especially when it comes, when you're sick, especially when you've got an illness that is terminally ill, and like I can get a transplant, but like I'm at a point right now where my body is shutting down. When you're feeling like this every day, and everything you do in the day is to either make money to get your life going, keep it going, or going to the doctor to keep your life going, it starts to feel like you are existing to exist. That everything you do is to just keep existing. It can be really demotivating. It can be really like disheartening, especially when you're feeling shitty and shittier every day. Like, what's the point in waking up every day and dragging myself through this life if I'm just doing it for the sake of dragging myself through this life, which I'm not completely, of course I have a family I love and I have kids that need me, but like what I need is the reminder that even though I'm sick, even though things are really hard for me physically right now, even though things are rough for my family in some aspects right now, that as my life in general can be so rich and I can feel so much more purposeful and fulfilled in my life if I can just reclaim some small aspects of fun, of recreation, of adventure, of joy in my, just to give it all some deeper meaning besides just the meaning of being here. And so that's what replenish is to me. I need to refill and replenish the areas of my life that bring me the most like unsolicited happiness. It'll help me be a better mom to my kids. It'll help me do better with the work I'm doing. It'll help me physically and mentally because that will give me more motivation to stick with things. If I can feel like there is a meaning behind it for me, if I can feel like there is purpose and reason for me to get out of bed every day besides just existing. And I should write that down. So that is the end of my intentions. And next is the goal setting. And I'm going to pick that up tomorrow because I have other things I need to get done today. And this is a lot. Now that I have this area of it done, the assessment, kind of knowing where I want to go with things and kind of what I need more of in my life, that will help me when I start setting goals for my personal life and for my overall life that can, I kind of know what they need to tie back into. I kind of knew that already, but it's nice to sort of have focused it through this work, which I appreciate. I also, after doing the power sheets for the last few years, this feels like it's cutting right to the chase fairly quickly. That's something I need right now. So cool. I'll see you in a second, but for me, it'll be tomorrow. Okay, it's the next day. Time to see if we can get through the rest of this. If I can't, then I can't. Like, I am a big proponent of not trying to rush your way through this kind of shit, but also not like taking too long. There's a fine line, I think, between procrastinating on it or like blowing through it so fast that you don't have time to really like think about what you're doing, or maybe thinking too much and overthinking it. I'm not great at either of those fine lines. Okay, so I'm just kind of reading through some of this stuff, and the first thing that's really kind of sticking out to me is this section here. The idea that like just because there are all of these sections doesn't mean you need to pack them full every month or every week, but to ask yourself the question, what do I want or need to accomplish this month or week in each area of my life? When all areas of life are getting your regular attention, you'll find that you accomplish more things with purpose. The small stuff matters too. That is definitely something I would like to incorporate this next year because like she even makes the point that like there are times where you're future planning and times where you're productive and blah, blah, blah. And that like not every area of your life is going to be in a go, go, go moment at any given time, but that if you are just in the practice of continually checking in with all these areas, you'll start making progress. That is something I really want to incorporate this year. Funny thing, we're in the middle of a particular program with one of my kids right now because of a mental health crisis, and they're working on a framework to help motivate them to get to like something that might seem really hard. And these are questions they ask there as well. Like you want to use something to motivate yourself, but you need to know what motivates you. And don't set a goal that you can't achieve or that like it's like wildly unrealistic. Like, be realistic with what you set so that you don't get demotivated or demoralized. There's a section here about reviewing your goals on a regular basis. The planner gives you the framework for that because, your circumstances change. And as I just talked about in my most recent, the video I did a couple days ago about my 2021 goals, this last year was a beautiful example of that, with setting my goals in January only to find out right afterwards that we're moving to Denver. And then removing goals. Goals are meant to inspire, not invoke negativity. If you find yourself feeling like you failed or it no longer resonates with you, give yourself permission to reassess and readjust, or just replace it with one that's more motivating. So, good reminders. Approach goals versus avoidance goals by framing them in the positive, making them measurable and specific. So, what and how much by when? This is something I've struggled a lot with recently. And it's not because the goals I'm setting are not measurable necessarily, but I've avoided thinking of them in that sense because it's a lot easier to talk about whether you've accomplished something or not when you have numbers to back it up, when you have evidence to back it up versus my feelings on it. And so that's something I'm looking to avoid this year because I think I've been able to kind of push some of the things I'm dealing with kind of under the surface because I have not been focusing on real concrete results, whether those results are just tracking or whatever. And then there's 3 types of goals. So these types of goals are important for achieving what you want in life, improving what isn't working, and maintaining the things that are always already going well. So she talks about stretch goals, and these are dreams, wishes, desires, the big goals to create, the goals that live outside of your comfort zone. They don't have to be huge and life-changing, but they often are, and she suggests you choose no more than 1 to 3 of these per year. Progress goals take you from where you are to where you desire to be. This is where you'll spend the greatest amount of time and energy creating change in your life. So they're things that could use improvement and offer the most significant opportunity for growth. They often answer the questions: where do I want to go? How do I want to feel? Who do I want to be? And what do I want to experience? And then maintenance goals are the goals, tasks, and intentions that maintain what's good and working in your life. They do require some effort or pre-planning. They can also encompass things we do on autopilot or in the everyday maintenance of our life. They're not big on their own, but they're integral to maintaining a flow and sense of well-being. They keep the quality of life in that area of your life going. And so here is the whole way to do things. And what I want to do right now is not worry about the monthly goals, not worry about the weekly actions, because I'm going to start doing that when I get to setting up January, which will be its own video. This first section is what we're going to be working on. Starting with the intentions you set for the year, create goals that support the vision you have for yourself. Who do you want to be? What do you want to do? What habits do you want to cultivate? So that's step 1. We have the intentions. We review the intentions, right? And I've already looked at my assessment. I have an idea, especially of the areas I really want to focus on. But even looking at the assessment, one other thing is that when you check it out and you look at the statements, when you see the low scoring ones, as example for me, one of my lowest score on the entire page is a 2, and it's I engage in these 2 spiritual practice ones. Basically, I can pretty much say without a doubt that a goal for me for this year is to get back to going to church. I don't even need to think too much about it. That's high on my list. The assessment just reaffirmed that for me. So you review your results from the Compass assessment, focus on what you'd like to score in each area at the end of the year. What needs to happen for you to give yourself that rating? What does it look like? Get specific in creating goals that support the vision you have for yourself in each area of life. Once you have completed writing your goals, reflect on how each one will benefit your life, then answer the question in the bottom section of the boxes. How will your life be different? How will you feel? What do these mean to you? This is your why. What I think I'm going to do first, I'm going to take my Klena, maybe the mild liner, just to make it obvious which one is which. And I'm going to go and I'm going to review each section and then really start writing down some ideas for my annual goals. I'm going to start here with personal and the things to consider in each area: self-image, self-worth, self-love, self-care, confidence, happiness, peace, fulfillment, well-being, mental stimulation, hobbies, projects, creativity, alone time, support, sense of community, routines, attitude, perspective, grace, and planning. Yeah, it's all of it. We're going to go back to the Compass assessment and looking At the score, I gave myself a 7 and I'd like to be at a 9. Looking at my scoring, in order to get a 9, let's think about math right now, right? The things I really need to work on are the take time for life planning, hobbies and interests, and personal goals or projects I want to complete. All of these things kind of, to me, go hand in hand with each other. Now, we'll talk a little bit more about these when I actually set the goals. Let's look at fun and recreation. So for fun and recreation, and I feel like this, again, much like the personal, there's a lot of lower scores on fun and recreation. Taking regularly planned time off, moments for rest and rejuvenation, having fun, rewarding myself when I accomplish a goal, doing things that bring me joy. This is my lowest scoring one. I scored a, 4 on that, and I'd like to score a 6. So when you look at this, it thinks about like time off, peak experiences, dates, activities, social interactions, laughter, rest, and rejuvenation. And when I look at my intentions for the year, the things that pop up a lot are fun, adventure, and rest. Those are the things kind of with fun and recreation that seem to be big categories that I want to start thinking about. For work and learning, and like I've said already, my work goals are not going in here, but I already kind of, again, know what I want. I don't need to spend a shit ton of time on work and learning. It is the one that scores the highest. I have an 8 in that, and I'd like to bring it to a 9. And if I look at work and learning, the area that really needs improvement, especially to bring it to a 9, is expanding my skills, right? And some of that goes back to the ideas I have for personal in terms of bringing on new art styles or whatever. I already know what I want to do in the next year for work and learning. That is a personal goal rather than a business. I mean, it's a business goal in the sense that it could bring in income. But what I need to do, and I realized it this quarter because this is actually a section of my HB90 goals that the one I talk about how there's one big project on my Kanban board that just didn't get done. And that is to have a robust surface pattern design portfolio, which means getting better at it, learning more about it, building the portfolio, learning how to do that. But I'm just going to write that fucker down because I know that's what I want to do. So family and relationships. I'm at a 7. I'd like to go to an 8. I'm expected to do a huge amount of growth this year in this area because I feel really good about the majority of it. The areas where I am struggling have to do mainly with boundaries around my time so that I can spend more time with my family. And then the free from toxic relationships is not entirely within my total control because this is a relationship that needs to stay currently. But what I can do is work on ways to make that relationship better for everybody involved by offering the support I need to offer, right? So it's not something I can directly change, but I can influence. And so that will likely be the big chunk of it. The 2 areas to really look at are helping my kids, basically, giving my kids some extra support and power, and then really working on setting boundaries around my time, not only for my own personal fulfillment, but also for in our families. Also, with family relationships and relationships as well, focusing on physical connection with friends. That might mean sex, but I don't mean sex. I mean meeting people in person. Health and wellness. Health and wellness. This always makes me laugh because it's like there are things and then there are things. Health and wellness is tied for second lowest scored out of 5. I want it to be a 7 by the end of the year. And some of this is in my control and some of this is not in my control. Right. But let's look at the compass assessment. And I chuckle at this because it always feels a little weird for me to think about some of these things because okay, for example, if you have chronic pain and you are asked to rate your pain on a scale of 1 to 10, but your baseline is is not a 1. Like if a 1 is no pain, what the fuck is that like if you have chronic pain, right? Like this is a real conundrum that can happen when you go to the doctor. You're like, what the hell am I supposed to say? And this is the same thing for me. Like I will never score myself a 10 in this area ever. I will always be sick. Even if I get a kidney transplant, I will always be sick. And so what is that? I don't know how. I know that there's a point where you can reassess your relationship with the category. It's just, this is one of those areas that every time I try to think about it, I get hung up on this idea, but I'm really trying to focus on the Makselife's idea of progress, right? Not winning the game, but like making small steps forward. So here, again, if I really want to improve this, there's a lot to improve on. So when it comes to self-image and trauma, those are not areas I really feel the need to work on, although I do expect at some point to pick therapy back up again, even if I'm not necessarily feeling the huge need for it right now. I would rather get established and get going with it, because I imagine when I first started the process of getting listed originally back in 2018, that's when I started taking antidepressants because it was bad, and I was doing therapy for a little while then. I imagine as a transition comes, once I get closer to actual transplant, I'm going to want to be in it again as well. There's a lot here to work on. A lot of this I think is going to happen in like the weekly actions and the habits. But if we look at this here, eating well and drink plenty of water, getting sufficient amount of sleep, having an exercise routine regular, these 3 things, if I can improve on them, it will help with this score of taking care of my physical, mental, and emotional health. It will help with that, because the biggest area that I feel I need to work harder in is physical health. And then over here, I'm equipped to handle life's events with strength and vitality, and I feel strong in body, heart, and mind. Again, a lot of my lower score in these has to do with not only how I'm feeling physically. In order to be compliant for transplant, I have very specific things I am supposed to be doing, even though part of the reason I'm getting away with some of it is because my blood work has been good, but like, it's not always going to be good. And so I feel guilt because of that. And what I would like to do is just incorporate what I want to be able to do is be able to say I'm taking care of myself. I am doing the things my body needs it to be doing in order to be as the best constitution possible for surgery. But also, when you're in kidney failure, you get nauseous. There are things that happen that, like, when I'm nauseated, I'm going to eat whatever sounds good for the moment because I'm fucking nauseated. So when I'm in the times where I have a little bit more to say over it, what I like to do is find that line to walk between being compliant with the things I need to be compliant with and still having joy. And I love cooking. I love things like that. I would like the exercise I do to bring me joy, which is why I love the Peloton. So, but I haven't been using it because I've been feeling so shitty. So it's finding that balance between taking joy in the things I'm doing to take care of myself, so it feels like I'm not just doing it because I have to, but I'm doing it because I want to, while at the same time knowing that I am doing the best I can by this body that is currently starting to fail. So all of that to say. And now we're to spiritual and personal growth. I don't even know if I need to look at this shit, because I already know. I'm going into this. Of all of the goals for this next year, this is one of the ones that, like the work goal, that is almost completely fully formed in my mind already, and I can emphasize it by looking at these. If my score currently is a 6 and I'd like it to go to a 7, I can... This is actually probably one of the ones that has the easiest roadmap to follow as well. To be attend enough to be able to become members, and then do all of this by November or so when they start offering, when they open up the choir. The other thing I've put on here is General Assembly, which is the big thing in the summer. My sister went with me when it was in Portland last time. That's where it's going to be this year. I just don't know. She wouldn't be able to go because she's avoiding places like that because of her transplant. I'll put a question mark for that. I don't think I'm going to make that goal. The other thing will be more habit related, and that is brain dump. That habit I'm putting under personal growth, because even though it could be in any of these situations, it could easily go in work, it could potentially go in personal. The reason I'm putting it in spiritual and personal growth is what I would like to do with my daily brain dump is have it evolve from just work related, which is what always happens when I start trying to dump everything out of my brain. My brain first goes to work related shit. I would like to get to a point where suddenly all of these aspects of my life are included in the brain dump, and I don't have to brain dump for work as much because I already do that as part of my work planning. Does that make sense? Financial. My score on that is a 5. I'd like to get to a 7. And then finally, physical environment. Probably the most project-based of all the goals, because I love our house and everything else, but just hella shit around the house. All right, now that we have kind of mapped out my general ideas around these goals, let's go to actually writing them, right? So we'll start I'm going to take a few minutes and I'm going to actually write them, and then we will talk about them. So my focus for personal is self-care through hobbies and boundaries. And I have a big annual goal. It's not really a stretch goal, but it is an annual goal. And this is to have art, my own originals, in every room in the house by end of 2022. I'm not talking about just printing out fuckery flowers and putting them in every room, although I'm probably going to count the gallery wall of fuckery flowers, because it may not be originals, but it would be originals if I wanted to frame those. And I actually have something in RJ's room already. This is important to me because I would like to create art for me. So that's a goal for me, and it actually ties into some of the hobbies I want to try. I made a couple of lists of things I would like to, these are not annual, but I would like to incorporate them over the course of the year. 2 different habits and routines on my list currently. One is the manicures, timing to be determined. I don't know how often I'm going to need to get them or what kind I'm going to get, but I do want regular manicures. And then planning for personal life daily. I talked about this a lot in my planner stack video, but my planning outside of the office, for one. For 2, really focusing on not just work life, but also personal life is very important to me this year. And so getting that habit or routine, however it's going to look, I'm not entirely certain yet, established by the end of the year would be wonderful. And then hobbies I would like to incorporate or at least try. And some of these have already started, and I just like to continue to explore them, give them some more time so I can improve them. The 2 I've really started are cooking with my wok and houseplants. I've kept some houseplants alive. I would like to graduate to some bigger plants, but I don't know if I'm ready for that yet based on what I have kind of done to some of the ones I have currently. So gardening has been on my list for so long, and it's hard because of how crappy I feel, but I would still like to give that a try. And then working larger scale, specifically with gouache or acrylic, which ties back into the having art of my own originals in every room. I'm sure there will be other hobbies as well that pop up, but the idea here is that I really want to focus on doing things that make me happy because they make me happy. And the boundary I want to set is around all of the other things that pull on my time. I want to give myself permission and just give myself the fucking time to do some things for me and not feel guilty about it. And now this is kind of some word salad, but the more I wrote it, I was like, the fuck are you talking about, Cindy? But I kind of think you'll get my point. My life will improve by reaching these personal goals. I will finally refill my cup and feel more grounded in my life as a whole person. Just let's go back to my word of the year, replenish. Like really, a lot of this is geared specifically towards this word. Let's go to fun and recreation. I was in the middle of finishing it, and then Jesse asked me if I would go for a walk with him and Layla. I actually talked about this goal with him because this is one that we would like to do together. So I gave some more ideas here. For fun and recreation, the focus is to bring more adventure and rest into my life. And the big goal for the year is to schedule and take, and I underlined that, regular time off. Vacations, staycations, days off, and date nights. Now, unlike this one doesn't have like an exact, like this is what has to happen, but I've broken it down, right? So at least 2 vacations, one with the kids, one without the kids. We only have about 1 vacation's worth of time that's not school time with the kids to do vacation with. And then staycations, fake Thanksgiving, maybe exploring Denver, but doing a couple of those. 3-day weekends, whether with Jesse or on my own. And then weekly date nights and or date afternoons, date mornings, date breakfasts, however we want to do it, but once a week, as well as continuing my successful habit of taking Saturdays off, while potentially adding Fridays. Right now I'm doing half-day Fridays, half-day Sundays. What I would really like is to be able to just do Fridays and Saturdays off and continue half-day Sundays. And then the thing I added after walking with Jesse was to prioritize off time just with Jesse, off time with my kids as a whole family, and also one-on-one with them, and also off time with just me. Work and learning. So I'm not putting a bunch of like secondary things. I do want to break this down, but it's not something I really want to break down at the moment, mainly because some of it does really tie in with work. But my annual goal for work and learning, the focus is to build my surface pattern design portfolio and skills. And the actual goal is to have an up-to-date, beautiful, and robust surface pattern design portfolio by the end of 2022. So My life will improve because I'll know at that point whether I want to pursue it or not. And either way, my skill set and my confidence is going to increase. Okay, so my family and relationship goal focus is communication and quality time. And the way I want to work on this next year, so far, this may change. This is one I think is going to evolve because situations change, especially when they involve other people. To implement weekly family planning, not the sexy kind, but like plan kind, and check-ins. This ties in with wanting to get in personal planning routines that don't involve work, but also between having Layla and my kids and wanting to help them with their boundary setting and their communication and some aspects of their life, everything else. Being able to have a specific time each week we work on this to check in with each other, to know what's coming throughout the week, I think will help all of us with our anxiety, with our expectations, with asking for help, with receiving help, everything else. And then the other thing is to commit to coffee dates outside the house 2 times monthly. I've been trying to do it weekly, but that hasn't been happening. 2 times monthly feels adequate for now. I may change that as time goes on. But the caveat I added here is that if my friend falls through, do it anyway. Get out of the house, go to a coffee date by yourself. Much like the work and learning, though, this is not one of the ones that I consider to be a more robust goal, mainly because this is not one of the areas that I am trying like super hard to work. This is not one of my big focus areas for the year. Currently, that may change. On the other hand, health and wellness. It is focused on being as ready as possible for transplant, and the big goal is to improve my compliance in the following areas by the end of 2022. So it's not like I don't do some of these things, but I would like to be more consistent at them and be able to say that I'm solid on them, solidly compliant by the end of 2022. And I will fill in kind of where I think I am, maybe on a percentage wise in terms of per month or whatever on each of these, but the areas I would like to improve, and I may add some if I think of them. Regular movement. This doesn't mean exercise. It means going for a walk, getting the steps in, however I want to put it. Exercise at least 3 times weekly, no more soda, daily outdoor time, whether that's a walk or just sitting outside, eating more fruits and vegetables, and 100% on medication management. So, blood pressure. 100% blood pressure management and tracking. Now, that doesn't mean my blood pressure is always going to be good, but I'm doing everything I can. So I would like to check in with this monthly, weekly, whatever, and work on these things. I'm not necessarily going to try to implement everything right at the same time because that is foolish, but these are what I want to be when I get to the end of 2022. If I haven't gotten a transplant already, I would like to be able to look back and feel like I have improved in all of these areas. And my life will improve by reaching these goals because I will be in as good of constitution as I can be for a transplant and hopefully feeling as good as possible. That's not something I have a lot of control over, but I can control how much I have done to be in as good of shape as I can be when I do get a transplant. Spiritual and personal growth. Again, another one that I already have my goal. I'm just going to glance at what I wrote, but I already have my goal. Join a UU church congregation and choir by the end of 2022, with the focus being to reconnect and discover my spiritual community. And my life will improve because I'll be back in touch with my faith community and faith, and also getting to sing. Fucking hell yeah. Now there's, again, a lot of steps for this one. I may break those down again soon. So these are the 3 major steps, is to visit a congregation enough times to be able to both decide it's the one and then join it. That does take time. And then making space for choir in my schedule, which is much less spiritual and much more boundary setting. But this is my spiritual and personal growth goal, which is one of the less detailed goals, but one of the bigger ones for my overall well-being. All right, so for my annual financial goals, there's 2 of them. One is to schedule and follow through on monthly budgeting with Jesse, and 2 is to contribute X amount monthly to our family's savings by end of year 2022. We had already talked about this, and we just need to figure out the number for me to work towards. So I'm not saying every month, but by the end of the year, I would like to be at a point where from my business, I am contributing X amount of money. And even though that's a business goal, it's also a family-related goal because my feelings around money with my business are a little hoarderish, and also I'm very scared of money and scared of talking about it. So my focus is to improve our financial picture as well as my relationship with money. And so setting this goal for myself for the family will motivate me to do it with the business. And my life will improve because hopefully I'll have less anxiety around money in general and around our financial picture. So for my final category, physical environment, the focus is to continue to maintain and add to our home. And here are my goals. So the top one is to complete a home project each month. I probably should define this a little bit more, and I probably will, but like organizing a drawer does not count. Like it doesn't have to be a massive like renovation project, but it needs to be something each month. So that is one of them. Getting all regular home repairs and maintenance on rotation or autopilot by the end of year 2022. We'll have a whole year to cycle through. It'll be nice to know that we know, like when it comes to regular stuff, we know who's going to do it, when they're going to do it, when we have to get in contact or when we have to plan for it, blah, blah, blah. That's my goal. Just adding that there so I don't forget. Maybe a yearly calendar spreadsheet that Jesse and I share. And then my other goal is to hire a cleaning service 2 times monthly. And the reason this is a goal and not just a task is because there's different things that go into it. 1 is making the space in our budget for it. 2 is finding someone that we trust. 3 is actually getting it scheduled and maintaining it. There's a lot to go into it, and it's not just so easy as like picking up the phone and calling it. There's some work we have to do to get to this point. The reason these all fit in with what I want for this next year, even though these are much more nuts and bolts, is because one of the things I want is to not be as overwhelmed and to not have to feel like I have to do all of the things. And all of these things will help me feel a little bit more in control and a little less anxious. I'll feel more secure in my house, less overwhelmed, and especially with the cleaning service, that means that something huge that is weighing on my mind will be taken off of my plate. So those are all of my annual goals. One of the fun things here is that these focuses are very similar to the kinds of goals I would write in the power sheets, but the actual goals are a lot more concrete and they're actionable. So that is interesting to me. I really appreciate you sticking with me through this whole video. I am feeling very good about it. I'm feeling very good about where I'm at. I'm excited to dive into January and start chunking down, as they say, my annual goals into what I can get done. We will talk more about that in upcoming videos. In the meantime, I would love to hear from you in the comments below. What is one goal you're working towards in 2022? It could be huge. It can be small. There's no shame here. If you're not setting goals, you can tell me that too. Let me know in the comments below. Thank you so much for watching. Subscribe if you haven't already. And until next time, friends, peace.